That was fun. I am trying to load up the game of the Formula One. Whoever is taking its sweet, sweet time. There we go, come on. Right, fantastic, we are in. And let's just join the session. As I try and reboot my phone. Let me just quickly sort myself out for the thing and sound. We are in commentary mode. Right, there we are. Right, as we are now back for the action after a short intermission. Qualifying, it's really what you expect. JJ from Jaden from Danny, them three have pretty much been ahead of everyone most of the season in qualifying. Stelios in second, another very good qualifying so far for the Sauber. And in fifth, Chris, after taking a week break, after podiuming in Hungary, is back, and he will be fighting for the win, I assume. Red in 6th. Very unlucky last week with the soft puncture on the penultimate lap. Another person who's got experience with punctures is Frankie, who at Silverstone barely hung on to the podium. I've just heard my own voice, so that's not fun. That. Copy link. Alright, 2 minutes. Most drivers will be heading out for their penultimate runs, but here we have Andreas on his run in the Haas. Once again, the only Haas representative for today. Through turn 1, 2, 3 complex, heading into the sector 1 split, is a 23.7, a marginal gain on his personal best, as well, we'll follow him until the end of his lap, because he's the only one currently on a flyer. The next person to start will be Froggy, and then behind him will be Stelios. So it's a trio of the GFO people starting their laps first, although it's gonna be Stelios then Froggy, as it seems, through the final corner. Oh, bit of a half, and that is not how you want to end a flying lap by Andreas. So unless he is able to do anything with a broken wing, which I don't think he'll be starting last of the timed laps in P10, as behind him it will be Stelios starting his lap and down into turn 1 into 3rd gear, as he picks up a bit of gravel on the exit of turn 2, down into Tarzan Bocht, burning battery on the exit, into the sector 1 split. It is a 23.7, so once again a marginal gain on his sector 1 lap time. Sector 1 is a 23.6 by JJ, so a lot of drivers seemingly staying close to what their actual sector 1 lap time was. Froggy in sector 1 into another 23.7. A lot of people hitting the 23.7 region with their first sectors. Stelios in the middle sector, 2/10 gain, as Euro now crossed the sector split. The split is a 23.8, so a 10th gain for him, as we will follow Stelios across the line. He won't repeat the doing of the Haas, as he powers that Sauber across the line. What will it be for him? He stays P4. It is a marginal gain at the end of the day, as he straight lines the wall. Interesting. As Froggy now, we'll follow his process as Euro check quickly. Yeah. Froggy up to the line, will be able to improve on P9. He goes to P4, so he leapfrogs, quite suited, into P4. Very good qualifying for the Sauber as Uri up to the line. What will he be able to do? He goes into P6, so he's unable to capitalise on Stelios' misfortunes. As now Chris, I think, it's Frankie's next across the line. He will go P3, only a tenth behind pole, as the next person, Red, fails to make any dents, as JJ will be the next across the line. Can he improve his gain? He stays P1, he improves his time by 2 tenths. Danny up to P2, 2/10 loss, as now Jaden across the line will be last. Is he able to put a dent in the pole lap of JJ here? Up to the line, what can the McLaren do? The McLaren goes second. So, to no shock whatsoever, it is JJ on pole from Jaden, from Danny, and Frankie in P4. Great qualifying outing from the Saubers as Chris pockets right in the middle of the Greek pairing. Uri, after a very good P3 last week, was it P3? Hang on. P3 last week, qualifies P8. Red, continuing his poor look, starts P9. Andreas P10, and then the 2 untimed Logan, and then me, who will be DNFing, and then Nick, who just joined the lobby. Crikey. Let's just check strategy situation. So a lot of drivers opting for the hard compound tyre, although I did see Nick join towards the end of quality. I think he might have been a slightly bit too late for starting the race, so we will start with 12. Obviously at the end of lap 1 it will go down to 11 after I serve my mandatory 1 lap prison sentence. So, majority of the field opting for the hard compound tyre, and obviously learning from yesterday's race in Tier 2, it will most likely be a 2-stop. Obviously, yesterday we saw Oren win 22 seconds, the margin was to the end, and he did a medium hard at the end of the day, so I think people might try and copy his strategy, others might do the alternate. Obviously, we saw one driver attempt to do the 1-stop last week. That was Fnatic. He took the mediums, he took the hards, 20-something laps, and eventually cost out the podium due to a 10-second penalty. But finishing P2 on track was a very good result for him. Obviously, made a 1-race cameo in Tier 1 after deeming too slow for the tier. As well, we can go underway for the formation lap.
Conditions look stable at the moment, no rain currently expected.
As immediately we've got 2 drivers disqualified from the formation lap. I think that is Uri and Andreas, so those 2 drivers will be at a disadvantage at the start, as they won't be able to get heat into their compounds, as I absolutely ruined some no-lines people's dreams, as I have just wrecked 2 camera.
No, don't do that. What good would that do? We can't do anything to the car, and we have a race to get on with. Do not try to come in, just form up on the grid, okay?
As I quickly just disqualify myself to get rid of the pain. Anyway, time for the back of the field analysis of the 5 red lights. It's lights out and away we go. And looking at the little track map in the bottom, I'm going to try and predict what happens as I bin it off the line. When have you ever seen that happen? As going to turn 1, I think JJ does maintain his lead, as Chris has leapfrogged Jaden into P2. Or is that Danny? I genuinely can't tell with how my... Froggy spun on the exit of Tarzan box, ignoring the fact I literally almost did the exact same thing. The order is James from Danny from Jaden to P4. I think that is Stelios. So once again, another good start for the Sauber. And I will take this car in at the slowest of paces to not bin it.
Pitting this lap then. Come into the pits at the end of this lap.
There we are. Don't care about the 10-second penalty as we have re-entered commentary mode. There we are. There you go. There's the pecking order so far. As we check positions gained and lost. So far, the highest climber has been Uri, gained 2 positions. So both. Oh, there's a yellow flag. I'm assuming that's a yellow flag for me. So both V-carbs gaining from Froggy's drop, more importantly, as I swear I saw Stelios around P4. Clearly must have not been truth. As Frankie. So only 4 drivers have maintained their starting position. Obviously, James from pole as... we might need to scratch that point, as we might need to see if there's any potential overtakes into turn 1. Turn 1 was the hotspot for overtakes in Tier 2 last night. However, as for this round, I do not believe there'll be any pit stops up until maybe turn 12 at this point. No one really going through it. I mean, this is, as I mentioned last night, quite a relatively narrowed track, so, you know, won't be expecting to see many overtakes. However, as proven last night by a few drivers, when there are overtakes, sometimes they can be quite spectacular. As some drivers at the front try and throw the dummy out to potentially scare the drivers into outbraking themselves, as I don't think anyone has fallen for it, as we're getting quite close here. The closest 2 drivers so far between Chris and Frankie, as close as 1.5 tenths between the Aston Martin and the V-Carb. As up front as well, quite close, but you know, it's a Taylor battery here. JJ's got barely half, whilst Danny's got quite nearing a whole pack of battery. As still relatively bunched together, the top 10, and then Froggy by himself, only 1.6 seconds behind the car ahead. looking to the inside for Danny, although he's unable to even think of the overtake. As let's just do a quick tyre check, because I think that might be quite interesting. So yeah, 3 drivers opting for the hard tyre, that being Andreas, Red and James. Does the red go for mediums? So we might be seeing relatively early pit stops for the majority of the field, as no one with any penalties as of yet. As we've got a swap here, we've got a fight here between Frankie and Chris. We did miss the overtake, but Chris goes past the Aston Martin and is up into 4th place. Will Frankie be able to respond on the main straight here? Obviously, the DRS starting even from this banking very here, so you've got a very long run into turn 1 to potentially try and complete an overtake. However, as the tyres get older, the grip gets more... well, the grip gets less grippy, so you can't eventually end up going full throttle throughout the entire section, as learnt from last night's race. Not naming names. Still, 6 laps in. We haven't really seen any major battles. Those ones that have existed have been those little ones pecked around the order. As we've got Logan in the wall, no front wing for the Alpine. Well, I'm assuming that's a dive into the pits, not caring for the speed limit, and that is the tyre off, and that is Logan out the race. It's a virtual safety car for the crash. Probably didn't think that one quite through, but that is our 2nd retirement from the race, so now everyone who finishes is guaranteed points here at Zandvoort. As I was saying before that happened, the gap between Chris and Frankie rose to a 2nd. So I was saying there was potentially a break in this 9-car DRS pack, as Logan becomes the first retiree of this race, obviously bringing out the virtual safety car, which I don't think anyone will be boxing under because it's lap 7. If it does carry on, we might see a few of the medium runners. Potentially some of those at the back who might capitalise off an early pit stop to potentially see them through to the end, as I believe the virtual safety car is ending, going off people's behaviours. Nope, that was a complete lie. But yeah, the gap between 4th and 5th has grown to 1.4 seconds, so if the virtual safety car does go in now, it'll screw Frankie up. Not anymore, but oh, there we go, the virtual safety car is in, and well, good thing Frankie, he doesn't have DRS, but he's within 0.3 of a second, but Andreas is the only victim of the virtual safety car, as 2 drivers pit, that is Stelios and Andreas. Stelios gets a 10-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Looked a bit on the edge there, but Andreas will be serving his drive-through penalty, as Stelios becomes the 3rd retirement of the race. So they started with 12, now there's 9. And logically, 8 in contention. As green flag conditions all over the circuit now. So we're back to full green flag racing, as it is now only a 7-car DRS train for the front, as 8th and 9th have had pit stops, one for tyre wear and the other for a drive-through penalty. So, you know, anything can really happen. As Jaden becomes the first front runner to bite the bullet and pit, slowing down quite early for his pit stop. Obviously, McLaren being the first pit box now, as Froggy gets a 10-second penalty in the pit lane. So that is all three members of the GFO having some sort of altercation involving the pit lane. Two of them with 10-second penalties, one of them with a drive-through in retrospect. So now Jaden becomes the first front runner to box off the mediums onto the hards, so he is definitely locked in the two-stop strategy, unless he is able to go 27 or so laps on the hard compound tyre, which even I think might be slightly too out of reach. As he does in fact have the fastest lap, 2/10 quicker than the nearest fastest lap. Well, actually that's a lie, only a few thousandths, because Froggy holds it, although that is not relative to the rest of the pack. Do we see any more drivers bite the pit stop bullet? As we do. So Danny is the second driver in, so he has tried to minimise the amount of damage he will lose to Jaden in this undercut battle, and I think it'll be quite close, although I don't think it'll be close at all, as Danny is now able to stamp on the throttle, and it'll be quite, actually, you know, it might be quite close here into turn 1 at Zandvoort. Jaden goes flying around, he's got the tyre temperature, but Danny's got the fresher tyres, and going out side by side, Danny is able to get out ahead of Jaden. However, he will have to do a big job to warm those tyres up and stay ahead of his nearest championship rival, who, from last week's result, I believe, is only he's only 5 points behind him in the standings. So even though 6th and 7th might be a fight for literal pennies as of now, come the end of the season, these 1 or 2 points difference might be a long way in terms of settling who finishes where in the championship. As more drivers bite the bullet, Chris is now in, locking up that tyre. You can see the amount of damage done on that front left. Obviously the front left is probably the most victimised of the entire car on this track, as now what remain at the front is 2 medium runners and 2 hard runners, as Chris gets leapfrogged by both cars, even though they were both ahead of him at one point, as the 2 GFOs are fighting here. Froggy overtaking Andreas, as Danny is now the net race leader, just as he has pitted. Well, he started on the median, so he's obviously going to box onto the hards to try and mitigate that damage. So we might see drivers such as Frankie or Uri boxing this lap, but James and Red might be going a whole of a lot of distance, as Froggy in the gravel resets the track. So I don't think there's any damage. Oh, as he's left the session. I have no way of inviting him back, so that might be a bit of an issue. As Uri's in the pits, quite bold. This might be a bit on the borderline here, but I don't think it is, as Uri is another driver in the pit lane. Coming off a podium last week, he will probably try and mimic that result here, as he goes on to a second set of mediums, biting on to an end hard stint, which may well help him. Obviously, he has been overtaken by his teammate. I think this is the first time these two have been teammates, because Chris joined when Uri left. So as we have an overtake at the front here, Red overtakes Frankie, so it's now a hard runner 1-2 at the front. Frankie in third. Those tyres must be begging for mercy. Obviously one of 2 drivers left on the mediums, but he has the older ones. Now, with how close the front pack is, it is very much a deal of strategy around a track like here. You know, a dodgy strategy could cost you a few seconds, and those few seconds could be the difference between second or third, as we saw yesterday. Like 5 cars finished within 2 seconds of each other. It was quite a close fight, although not many incidents, which I think the league owners will be thankful for, as Frankie stays out for another lap on those tyres, so must be nearing puncture territory for those. Obviously quite acclimatised to a puncture, this man. Might be worth. I don't think there'll be any overtakes, so I might do like a quick warnings check. James with nothing, Red with nothing. If it lets me, Frankie nothing. Danny with 1 on lap 1. Jaden on 1. Chris with 1. Christ, Uri on 1. So I think it's quite difficult to get track limits penalties around here. I think the places where you're most victim to get track limits is around here, the turn 12, where you might find yourself bouncing over that curb, getting a silly warning, or there going wide could be a warning as well. But do we see any drivers box from the top 3 at this point? Because these are the only 3 who have stayed out. No, but the gap between second and third has grown to just about second. Is bobbing between 9/10 and 1.1 seconds. So Frankie, by the time next lap comes, may well be out of DRS from the race leaders, as there's no overtakes. A lot of the field really spread out. The only real close people are the guys in P4 and P5. Might as well do a quick battle check. So around 70. So the odd few who have got a decent chunk of battery, but the rest of them around 1/3 to around a half battery. Obviously trying to maximise. For some, it's trying to push the gap as much in order for them to lose as little time for their pit stops, and for the others, it's to close that gap to ensure the first happens. As Frankie has lost 5 seconds. There we go. Front left puncture for the Aston Martin. So surely it will be a pit stop now for the Aston Martin. You might call it commentator's curse. However, quite lucky it's happened at the end of this lap, not at the start of the other lap, because that would have been a much bigger time loss for the man with the car number 69. That's 2 Aston Martin drivers with really strange car numbers. One's got 69 and the one in tier 2, Callum's got 67. I do surely wonder why they picked these weird numbers in the 60s. Here we are. That pit stop from the Aston Martin has promoted Danny into 3rd, where he is now only around 10 seconds, not even 10, 9, just under 10 seconds away from the race lead, with 9 lap fresher tyres. As will the front 2 box this lap, or will they stay out any further? JJ stays out, and so does Red, so they will be pushing to around. So right now this is still 2 stop range, where they box this lap and they do 2 10-lap stints on the medium compound, which, depending on what set tyres they chose, could be very well a possibility. So far still the only close battle is between Danny and Jaden. Still 9 drivers in it, so everyone guaranteed to get at least 2 points in what is round 13 of the championship, I think. So we could say we are close to 3/4 season distance, as the gap at the front becomes more and more apparent. JJ on his way to a 3-peat in Tier 1, currently 257 to 161 points. Now, that is a difference of 96 points. So as it stands in this race, that gap will go from 96 to 106 points in favour of the Williams driver in P1. But in the next few laps, you never know, that deficit could go from 106 to 109, depending on how this battle between Danny and Jaden goes. We got Frankie overtaking Andreas. That's a 14-lap tyre advantage for the Aston Martin. You know, probably could have been a bit higher up if he didn't have that puncture at the end of lap 15, but, you know. Lap 14 even, yeah, my stupid maths. But Chris has now caught up to the pair of drivers fighting for the final podium place. As for now, we are just about half race distance here, and could we see the final three to make a pit stop? Nearly said the wrong thing. To potentially pit and sacrifice track position for fresh rubber. They still don't, so another lap on the aging hard tyres. We might have an overtake here. Jaden using the DRS, using the battery to send it past Danny into the first corner, as that was a very well executed move for the McLaren, currently fighting for second in the championship, as Andreas looked like he was going to pit, but he's currently weaving on the straight. I didn't even realise Froggy was behind him. So the two GFOs fighting, getting on the curb, and that is a spin for Froggy. Can he get it around quick enough? I think he can. So, bit dicey moment for the remaining Sauber, as I'm trying to see if it's raining, because there was a few people in the chat saying it was going to rain, but I genuinely can't tell if it's raining or if I'm just blind. No one. James and Red still not boxing, as oh yeah, they have now done over half race distance on these hard tyres. So one could say, and this is a complete rogue shout, this could be an attempt at a one-stop strategy. However, with how tyre wear, and especially the front left, is around this track, I mean, you can see the Red here lifting off through some of the prominent left-hand corners, potentially trying to save as much tyre grip as possible. Obviously, within a second of DRS for now, but as Chris down the inside of Danny, bit of contact between the sister Red Bulls. Obviously, the pink V-carb and the base Red Bull, as Chris tried to make an overtake for P4 here, which would have just damaged Danny's tyre gap even further, all the way to, that would have been, so the gap would have been 15 points from 96. That would have been 111 points, as JJ is in, the first of the top two to box, as oh yeah, that's a very worn front left. I swear I just saw specks of rain, although that could just be me. As Red carries on in the leader. Frankie Rio is out ahead of JJ, so he's gone hard to medium. Now the question is, will he be able to take the medium 16 laps, or will it be another visit to the pits within around 10 laps for the Williams? So we just look at that front left on Red's Mercedes. It's quite very much in tatters. I mean, 20 laps where the tyre is being put through constant pain. Surely is not the best thing, but he stays out for another lap. So that leaves a second gap between, as we now have 4 cars in the top 4, all with 10 plus lap old hards. Chris tries to pull alongside the sister Red Bull as James, without any fight, gets past the Aston Martin and Frankie. So he will try and cut as much of his losses to the top 4 as possible, as now he has 7 seconds to Uri ahead, and then a further 5 to the cars further, as Danny gets overtaken by Chris. As I move ahead, it's raining at Zandvoort here, so this might have been what Red was planning along. It is raining here, and potentially this could either come into his favour a lot and just sink straight away, so everyone has to box. So that definitely has JJ kicking himself, as he could have definitely stayed out a few more laps and potentially caught this rain as the race leader. As the top 4 bunched together, bit of contact, domino effect here in the top 4, as DRS is still enabled, but the question is, has the track gotten wet enough for the intermediate? Jaden around the outside of the final corner. That is quite a spectacle move, but Red is in the pit lane after 20 laps on those hard tyres. So now we have, as Chris tries to go down the inside of turn 1, bit sideways, but the gap just wasn't there. It was just closing, really. More drivers into the pits. Uri's into the pits, so he is opting for a set of hard tyres. Could this be a Monaco 23 situation? They're boxing onto slicks, but in fact it's getting wetter, so they might be able to make another visit for the pit lane here. And that might have potentially cost them 20, 30 seconds in what could have been a great result for the pair of them. I mean, so far, if we just look at last lap, because that's like when the rain started kicking in for Jade, like 3 seconds slower on average. So the rain has definitely settled in. Although the question is it wet enough to constitute the intermediate tyre for this race? Or will the drivers just stick it out on their slick compounds? I mean, looking at the slipping from the McLaren onboard, this could be touch and go here. I have no information whether or not what's going to happen between the tyre compounds. We can see the track, it's getting wetter as Jaden pulls the trigger. He is the first in the pit lane. Will this be a set of intermediates for the McLaren? It is the green tyre for the guy with the green helmet, as Chris, I assume, will follow his footsteps and will also pit for intermediates. JJ in second. What he could have been if he just stayed out those 3 extra laps and gone on intermediates now. Frankie, 8 laps into for the intermediate. I'm assuming most people will be in for intermediates, except for those who pitted anywhere within the last 5 laps. I think they will opt for staying out and track position, because there's one bound to make a mistake, and Froggy, there you go in the pit lane. It's a safety car at Zandvoort. Froggy, the Sauber on 13 lap old hards, and that has just been a miracle sent in the heavens for the front 3 there, as more importantly Danny and James here will benefit a lot from this safety car. I feel that is some of the best luck you'll ever see in league racing. James, he's boxed before the rain, and now he is second in the rain in the safety car. As well, it's a no-brainer to box now. The Red Bull, the one thing you can't do is speed, because right now speeding will be very costly. There you go. The question is, how far back will Red come out in relative to the cars behind? Uri and Andreas will definitely be boxing now. Andreas, 22 laps on hards, stayed out pretty much the most of the race, and now this will be his only pit stop of the race, unless there's a later safety car. As here we are, race leader Danny on a fresh set of intermediates, although under the safety car, fresh set really means nothing because everyone will get to the same point. But yeah. Here we are. This is, I think, the set. As Andreas goes onto a set of mediums. Have Haas hired the Ferrari strategists or what? Because that is such a silly error to make under safety car. You've literally got a free pit stop to potentially fight for further points. I'm pretty sure he was the one with the drive-through. Yeah, he had a drive-through. He could have really benefited from this safety car, but no. He goes onto a set of mediums when it's getting even wetter on the circuit on the Dutch coastline. Oh! Have I been disconnected? Oh, I've been disconnected. Fabulous. I think my internet's gone out. What's just happened? Oh! What the bloody... What? Oh well. I guess that happened. Thank you, Jaden, for the invite back. I don't know what happened there. A strange scenario, I guess. As we load back into the session. Right, we are back, and luckily the safety car has not gone in yet, so we've not missed much action. That is if we get a late safety car call, which I don't think we will, considering Andreas is, well, he's in his own little fight here. Fight with himself. Slick tyres on a wet track, which has, since my departure, gotten even more wet. Oh well. Some intensive weaving from the drivers here as Uri goes Tokyo drift mode through the turn 1 banking. Will Andreas finally change onto a set of intermediates? I think this is the time to box, although bit sideways in the pit lane, although he does get it slowed down in time for his pit stop, as Andreas does call the trigger. Oh well. There was 12, now there's 7. And arguably, all these 7 drivers are very much capable of fighting, even for the race win, maybe in podium. So this will be probably the tightest packed field we might have seen. I think all 6, 7 of these drivers have stood on the podium somewhat at part of the season, I believe. So Danny will get us underway for probably the most hopefully the most action-packed restart this season so far. It will take skill here on a rainy day in Zandvoort, as Andreas has left the session, but that is irrelevant. So the Red Bull in full control here, second in the standings, and he's got a job to do, and that job is to win his race, as, you know, trying to get as steady as possible. And here we go, as there's a spin at the back for Uri. Barely spin, I guess, but, you know, quite unsettling on the start. That thing dropped him in place on the start, if I'm not mistaken. As Chris, down the inside of Tarzan block, getting it alongside the McLaren. Now they're side by side into the downhill right-hander. Now Chris with an absolutely audacious move overtakes third in the championship and is now in the hunt for the race win here, which he is very capable of doing, as James down the inside here of the death curb corner. And now Jaden, in the span of 2 corners, has fallen from second to fourth, and it could be fifth here as Red gets alongside here, but he's not able to pull alongside enough to constitute an overtake. He could try and get the power down before, but now into turn 12, the gaps are pretty even. I'm getting 6-7 allegations, no way. Oh, Chris tries to go around the outside. Obviously, he likes an around the outside move out of Hungary, especially at turn 1, but he is unable to complete the overtake. So now, well, we're back to square one here for a lot of these drivers, as a bit wayward for the McLaren again through Tarzan block, and that allows Red to pull alongside again. In 2 consecutive laps, a driver has pulled alongside Jaden into Tarzan block and around the outside again. So same corner, different lap, same outcome here for Jaden, and gets passed again. So that's another drop of position for the McLaren, currently third in the standings. As out of front here, Danny looking in his mirror as he sees the pink missile behind him. These two shared a very nice battle in Japan, where it also set, the tsunamis opened up and we saw rain in Japan. As a bit of gravel on that front left, probably not the best thing to do. As the safety car graphic is still there, Uri in 7th, falling away from the pack. However, you know, probably didn't come into this race weekend with many expectations. So I think points will be a pleasant surprise. Not even the worst haul of points. 6 points anyone will take. Oh, quite close between Chris and JJ. So there's a second gap, so we have split, the field has split into 2 positions. It's a bit rowdy on the corner there for the Mercedes. So, you know, down the inside, hacks the Mercedes. Battery situation, a lot of drivers around the 60 to 80 range of battery. So now, no drivers with penalties, all within 1 lap of tyre delta. So these next 7 laps will decide who gets the throne on the Dutch dunes as we start lap 30. The final 6th of the Grand Prix here, as Frankie tries to go down the inside of the bit, clips the inside pit wall. I don't think there's any damage for the Aston Martin there, although I think damage this race will be the least of his concerns considering what happened earlier this race. What has happened? This drop in Jaden's pace, like it's quite concerning, to be fair, for him at least, because you know, he was second at one point for the restart, and now he's barely hanging on to 5th. As I think with the rain here, the fastest lap will go to Frankie. I don't know if that has any sort of sentimental value for him, but I think it'll be a nice takeaway for the weekend, as the rain has slowed down. I don't think it's fully stopped, but it's definitely not as bad as it was a few laps prior. Danny Dukes, I'm not sure what happened there, but Chris blasting the battery down the inside, bit locking the brakes, bit of argy-bargy between the two Red Bull cars, but different teams obviously, but Red Bull owned, so quite argy-bargy, banging against the pit wall. But you know, now's the main question: how dry is it on track? Is we've got quite a bit closer personal again between Chris and Danny. Chris up the rear of the Red Bull. Quite entertaining, to be fair, this. As the rain has stopped, I'm sure. I can't see any, like, you can see the spray, but I'm pretty sure that's still just standing water. As there'll be 5 laps to go once we cross the checkered flag. Checkered lot, start finish straight. Christ, to get my teeth in. But yeah, a race which started with a Williams in P1, a race which saw the championship leader stay out for 20 laps, that shafted by the strategy as he boxed just before the rain, but then he got the look of a lifetime by the safety car. And now he is only a second, just under a second behind his closest championship competitor. By closest, it is still 96 points away. Ooh, quite a good run for the V-Carb there as he goes down the inside of the death curve. Oh, a bit argy-bargy there, but still tries to go for the move. Very aggressive for the V-Carb there. Obviously in his rookie season, bit of internet connection. I don't know if that's for me or if anyone else. Now that allows JJ to get quite close, and a bit of argy-bargy, but that allows JJ to go through. So Chris from one lap went from fighting for the lead to now trying to hold on to P2 as side by side through turn 12 go the V-Carb and the Williams, but eventually Chris does claim the position. But now the gap is 7/10 to the car ahead, as the gaps have evened out now. Lap 33 of 36, as Red makes a bit of a mistake, so that drops him down to 6th. I don't know if that was front wing damage or a half spin, or I don't know, but yeah. Trying to see if he's got any damage, but it doesn't show me. Is it raining again? I'm just seeing small specks, but I doubt it's rain. It might just be something else plopping from the air. Might be seagull excrement, knowing I should probably do that again so I don't disrupt anyone else's laps. As lap 34, as even top 3 quite evenly spread, as Uri boxes quite halves what will be the plan here for the V-Carb. What set of tyres is it? It's a slick compound. It is a soft compound tyre for the V-Carb here, so Is he saying it's dry enough for slicks? Although it might be a little too late for the V-carb. Although if it does dry up relatively quickly, he might have just made a 7,000 IQ as he does just half spin out the exit. I think it might not have been worth to go on the slicks for now. He might have just thrown away a pretty decent position, considering if anyone gets any post-race penalties for any incidents that they may or may not have been involved in. As next time round will be the penultimate lap of this Dutch Grand Prix, which saw the switch from dry tyres to wet weather conditions, which probably might have not been expected by a few drivers, but alas, here we are as we now round the final corner, not for the last time, as quite defensive on the line. JJ down the insides, half spins himself despite an audacious send into turn 1. I mean, it's what you have to do if you try and gain positions, although that could have ended probably a lot worse for the championship leader there. Could we see any other potential overtakes, or have we said goodbye to the overtaking game at the end of... I mean, one thing's for certain, the top two are not going to give it up easily. Danny, could he come back to the top step of the podium for the first time since Monza, I think? And then Chris, can he take his maiden win in the league, joining around the start, but not necessarily the first race of the season? As DRS is enabled, so for the final lap, we will see DRS action, which may or may not aid the overtaking. So here we are, it's dried up to the point where they have said you can use the drag reduction system as the rear wing is open for the V-carb of Chris. The question is he far enough back? Can he go for it? He goes for it, half spins into turn 1. That allows JJ to get quite up close and personal with the rear wing of the V-carb as Frankie overtakes Jaden, so that piles more salt into the wounds of the McLaren. As could that be the last time we see a move into turn... Well, it is the last time we get to see a move into turn 1, but now Chris, he's got the Williams, he's got the championship leader behind him. One thing for certain, James will not let this go easy. Tries to throw the dummy out. Although, you know, the dry track with the groove tyres probably isn't the best for grip, as here we are. Chris will open DRS for the penultimate time with 21% battery. Can he do anything to upset the Red Bull of Danny here on the shores of the Dutch Sea? He is 4/10 behind, but will that 4/10 make a difference? He's got the DRS wide open, but Danny's also got DRS. He's got battery, so Danny, for the first time since Monza, wins in EXFL as Frankie gets Jaden on the line, which, well, that means only one driver has finished where they started, and that was Frankie, who got a puncture quite early on, so I'm sure he's quite delighted to bring his result back. As Uri will be the last driver to finish, so the race is complete. Now any bickering will have to be done in the steward's room. So there you have it, your podium for, I believe, the 13th time this season. Let me just completely Make sure I'm not making it up for the for the 13th time. That is your podium. You've got the Red Bull of Danny on top, his first win since Monza, I believe, climbing up from P3. Chris from P6, very close between him and Danny towards the end. A few questionable moves here and there, but that's not for me to decide. And then JJ from pole down into third, got saved by the safety car. Oh well, I have been the commentator. I'll probably be back for next week. I don't think I'm doing tier 2. So for now, I have been the commentator, and yeah, see you next week.